Strong wind signal number 3 in force until at least 11 p.m. KMB and City Bus apply for fare hikes. And yet another minibus accident involving drunk driving. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The strong wind signal number 3 is now in force and will remain in effect until at least 11 p.m. Weather authorities will consider upgrading the tropical cyclone warning signal in accordance with the distance of tropical storm Taraji from the Pearl River estuary. Timothy Lee tells us more.
With tropical storm Taraji edging closer to the city, Hong Kong experienced showers earlier today under the influence of the storm's outer rain bands. Those not carrying their umbrellas with them were in the minority. This as far less rain affected the Central Ferry piers, where many tourists did not seem bothered and continued their sightseeing.
I feel like this is what typhoon number 3 usually is like in Hong Kong. There was some news about there being typhoon number 8 for a week now, so I feel like I'm more or less ready for that.
Oh, I feel like the weather is fine and then chilly, so no sunlight, so I think it's good to walk around. Yeah, similar to normal temperature and doesn't affect too much.
I come from Manchester in England, it rains a lot, so the rain's nothing new, it just keeps coming down. But the winds, I've not even felt the wind to be fair. It's okay, I'm loving it.
Many tourists still made their way to the Central Ferry piers this afternoon despite the gloomy weather. A number of them said they've experienced far worse weather conditions and that the ongoing tropical cyclone warning signal does not affect their travel plans. The observatory said Taraji will continue on its path towards the Guangdong coastline, with the city experiencing stronger winds as a result of the combined effects of Taraji and the northeast monsoon. Senior scientific officer of the observatory, Lee Shuk-ming, noted that Taraji will reach a distance of 150 to 200 kilometers south of Hong Kong between tonight and tomorrow morning. She added that weather authorities will consider issuing a higher tropical cyclone warning signal depending on the strength of the storm when it edges closer to the Pearl River estuary. The occasion also marks the first time since 1961 where 4 storms swirled simultaneously in the Northwest Pacific. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Bus companies KMB and Citybus have applied for fare increases. Reportedly, KMB is seeking a fare hike of 6.5%. And Citybus has applied for a 9.5% increase. Fares of Hong Kong's franchise bus routes last went up 17 months ago, with increases ranging from 3.9% to 7%. KMB says the fare adjustment this time is due to the change in costs and operational needs. It hopes the government will process the application as soon as possible. Citybus also confirmed that it had applied for a fare hike in January this year to cope with rising costs in fuel and wages. This citizen hopes the fare increase will not go beyond 2 to 3%, as Hong Kong people have already been grappling with a higher cost of living these days. This citizen says the proposed fare hike would affect people's daily commute. This man said the hike entails extra expenses of around $20 to $30 a month, which is acceptable. Some lawmakers noted how the operating environment of bus companies has improved in the past year and it's unreasonable that they apply for another round of fare increases now. Lawmaker Gary Zhang explained international oil prices in the past year have stabilized and even declined, which should help the bus companies balance the books. Lawmaker Michael Tian meanwhile suggested the government formulate an annual fare adjustment mechanism that is linked to the city's inflation rate for franchise bus companies. Since February 2019, the government has exempted franchise buses from paying tolls when using government tunnels. Bus operators are required to keep the tolls saved in dedicated fund accounts, i.e. the Franchise Bus Toll Exemption Fund. When operators apply for a fare hike, they should offset the increase first by using the balance in the fund. Reportedly, KMB's fund now has $450 million. The fare hike for franchise buses needs to be deliberated by the Legislative Council's panel on transport and the Transport Advisory Committee before being submitted to the Executive Council for final approval. A suspected drunk driving accident this morning has marked the 3rd case in 3 months involving a minibus driver driving under the influence of alcohol. Some lawmakers noted the need for minibus operators to help prevent similar incidents. This latest case involved a 70-year-old driver of a Route 36A minibus. At about 9 a.m., his minibus collided with a private car at Yuman Square in Kuntong. No one was injured. The minibus driver failed the breathalyzer test and was arrested on suspicion of drunk driving. Last month, a woman was killed by a red minibus in Xiaomaoping. The minibus driver was arrested on suspicion of drunk driving. Another drunk driving accident happened in August, involving a minibus driver in Kuntong. Lawmaker Ben Chan, who chairs the Legislative Council's panel on transport, proposed to set up a hotline for tip-offs over minibus drivers who have drinking habits. The police's National Security Department has charged a 57-year-old man with one count of knowingly published publications with seditious intent. The case was mentioned at West Kowloon Magistrates Court this afternoon. Chow Kim-ho was arrested in Hong Kong yesterday. The man allegedly posted photos and videos with seditious intent on various social media platforms between March and November this year. It is understood that Chow is a former member of the League of Social Democrats, and his posts allegedly targeted Beijing and the Communist Party of China. No plea was taken today, and the case has been adjourned until December 30th. The defendant has been remanded in custody. A New York judge has postponed a decision on whether to undo President-elect Donald Trump's hush money conviction, as prosecutors consider how to proceed in light of last week's U.S. election. Trump's lawyers argue for a dismissal so he can run the country. Trump was convicted in May of 34 counts of falsifying business records related to hush money payments to porn actor Stormy Daniels. The payment was to buy her silence about claims that she had sex with Trump. The postponement comes at a dramatic point in the case, which focused on how Trump accounted for payments to Daniels before the 2016 election. Sentencing had been set for November 26, but Manhattan prosecutors now say they're reassessing and appear open to the possibility that the proceedings cannot go as planned. Trump's lawyer has argued the case must be thrown out altogether to avoid unconstitutional impediments to President Trump's ability to govern. Israeli airstrikes killed at least 46 people in the Gaza Strip in the past 24 hours, including 11 at a makeshift cafeteria in an Israeli-declared humanitarian zone. In Lebanon, warplanes struck Beirut's southern suburbs, where Hezbollah has a significant presence, and killed 33 people elsewhere in the country. The latest bombardment came as the United States concluded that Israel is currently not impeding assistance to Gaza. And Washington will not reduce its military support for Israel after a deadline passed for Israeli authorities to allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza. Tracy Furness reports.
People gather outside a World Food Programme distribution point in Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip, waiting to receive food parcels distributed by UN agencies. This man checking the contents of his box of aid. Rice, oil, sugar, canned food, milk powder and dry lentils are among the items packed inside. He said, "For almost 3 months I have not received any aid box from UNICEF. Life's necessities are difficult to obtain. The canned food we receive is not enough for a family of 9 people." The United Nations say famine is already occurring or imminent in the northern part of the Gaza Strip.
Men, women, boys and girls are effectively starving as the conflict rages, with humanitarian organizations blocked from delivering assistance to those in need.
The Israeli military announced on Tuesday the opening of a 5th crossing for humanitarian aid into Gaza, a key demand by the United States for Israel to increase aid to Gaza. In the northern Gazan town of Beit Hanun, Israel's military forced many Palestinians from their homes and shelters. The Hamas-run civil defense said there are about 7,500 people sheltering in 4 schools in the town. Other Palestinian families arrived with their belongings in Gaza City on foot or riding carts.
And still ahead. In the UK, the Archbishop of Canterbury resigns over his handling of a child abuse case. In Zhuhai, mourning at the site of a deadly car rampage incident. And a look at Shandong Province's wine and beer-themed museums. Welcome back. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, who is the head of the Church of England and spiritual leader of the Global Anglican Communion, has resigned. This after an investigation found he failed to tell police about serial physical and sexual abuse by a volunteer at Christian summer camps as soon as he became aware of it. Daniel Rao tells us more.
The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has resigned over an abuse cover-up scandal. The 68-year-old had been in the role since 2013 and would have been expected to retire around the age of 70. Pressure had been mounting on Welby since the Church of England released the results of an independent investigation into the late John Smith, a prominent attorney and Christian summer camp volunteer, last Thursday. The report said Smith sexually, psychologically and physically abused about 30 boys and young men in the United Kingdom and 85 in Africa from the 1970s until his death in 2018. The 251-page report concluded Welby failed to report Smith to authorities when he was informed of the abuse in August 2013, soon after he became Archbishop of Canterbury. The inquiry found had Welby done so, Smith could have been stopped sooner. Welby said he didn't inform law enforcement agencies about the abuse because he was wrongly told the police were already investigating. Even so, he took responsibility for not ensuring the allegations were pursued as energetically as they should have been. Welby's resignation will send ripples around the world. The Archbishop of Canterbury is the symbolic head of the Anglican Communion, which has more than 85 million members in 165 countries. Welby was a controversial figure even before the scandal. A skilled mediator who has worked to resolve conflicts in Nigeria and elsewhere in Africa, he struggled to unite the Anglican Communion. The Communion has been riven by sharply divergent views on issues such as gay rights and the place of women in the Church. The process to appoint his successor will now begin. A period of consultation on the needs of the Church of England as well as the Anglican Communion will be followed by an appointment of a Crown Nominations Committee. Dunrell, 2B News.
President Xi Jinping left Beijing for Peru this morning to attend the 31st Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Economic Leaders Meeting. This is his second visit to the Andean nation in 8 years. President Xi is set to deliver a speech at the APEC meeting to expound China's measures to deepen reform and opening up, as well as policies and propositions on strengthening Asia-Pacific cooperation. After that, he will pay a state visit to Peru and hold talks with President Dina Boluart. It's been reported that an updated free trade agreement will be signed to spur commerce between the two countries. Chief Executive John Lee is heading for Peru to take part in the APEC Summit. Tackling the tide of anti-globalization is one of the key topics this year. The business communities in Hong Kong and Peru have both pointed to the increasing importance of the Asia-Pacific region to the global economy. They urge countries to remain open and flexible to cope with challenges posed by anti-globalization. Danny Zhou tells us more.
Political and business leaders from 21 Pacific economies are gathering in the Peruvian capital Lima for the 31st Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. The theme of this year is Empower, Include, Grow, setting the tone for discussions about economic transformation and sustainable development. Lee is slated to join President Xi Jinping and US President Joe Biden in attending various levels of meetings. Marjorie Young, the president of a textile group, is also present at the event as China's representative to APEC Business Advisory Council. She noted Hong Kong, as a financial center, has been eagerly promoting multilateral trade and digitalization, and it can help other APEC members to transform through the digital economy. Young added the meeting presents a precious opportunity for them to explore the ways of enabling the integration of small, medium and micro enterprises and women into global economic development. With the APEC region representing nearly half of all global trade volume, one of the key agendas this year is the establishment of a free trade area in the Asia-Pacific. However, the world is facing the rising tide of protectionism with economic fragmentation and US President-elect Donald Trump's pledge to hike tariffs. Some business communities in Peru suggested Pacific economies are well aware a trade war cannot proceed and will not succeed.
Perhaps we would go through some trade wars, but at the end of these trade wars, and this is something we have seen in the past, we're going to see a new rebalancing act. Sometimes we need this trial and error, and then we will reset things and go back to normal.
Danny Zhou, TVB News.
After the Zhuhai car rampage on Monday night, which claimed 35 lives, people set up makeshift memorials at the site to remember the victims. At the Zhuhai Sports Center, people laid wreaths and candles at the site of the incident amid a police presence. Reportedly, all group activities, including dancing events, have been suspended in various nearby neighborhoods. Local authorities also stepped up security measures at crowded places, including cultural venues, tourist spots, and the airshow venues. Monday's hit-and-run attack has left 35 people dead, with more than 40 injured. The suspect, surnamed Fan, was later apprehended by police. He was in a coma with self-inflicted knife injuries. Shandong boasts a long history and culture of winemaking. The eastern Chinese province has built several wine and beer-themed museums and hosts annual beer festivals to promote their brews. In the 8th part of our series, Shandong from Ancient Culture to the Future, TVB News went there to look at the province's winemaking culture that transcends centuries. In Yantai, Shandong province, this museum walks you through the century-long development of China's wine industry and the country's first industrial wine factory belonging to a well-known brand. More than 90% of the varieties of winemaking grapes in China were introduced into the country and named by them. In 1954, during the Geneva Conference, former Premier Zhou Enlai treated his guests with their brandy. The museum also introduces modern winemaking technology and viticulture. Wine tasting workshops available as well. Another museum here in Qingdao is this century-old Qingdao Beer Brewery, which witnessed its company evolve into a billion-dollar business which accounted for half of China's national beer exports. Qingdao Brewery was listed in Hong Kong in 1993, marking it the first Hong Kong-listed mainland company. Poster ads from 100 years ago, the bygone days when the beverage was first introduced into the eastern province. This treasured item of the brewery, an electric motor imported from Germany when the brewery was built in 1903. The machine can still be used to this day. Visitors can taste the malt and hops, which are main ingredients of beer, and stroll past the automated production line to see the manufacturing process.
Here at this drunken house, many would be stumbling through like an alcoholic even though they've been sober. That's because the room is tilted at 18 degrees.
Still, the area of the museum with the most fizz is this drinking zone. Ms. Chan last visited the museum 6 years ago. She said even though the beer has become more popular, its quality remains timeless. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.